This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, May 30th, 2024, and I've got the excellent Nick Sutrich here of Android Central. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm great. If I sound a little off, folks, it's because I have a bit of a runny nose today, so I'm a little congested, but hopefully that doesn't bother you too much. Nick, it's been a quiet week on the tech front, as it were, but I did manage to find some stuff. Some of it is kind of cute, and some of it is kind of like serious, and some of it is like kind of like what the and so let's go through that. I want to start with nothing because we all love nothing, right? It's hard not to love nothing. And then they give us this R2D2 nothing phone 2A. That's the best. Like, I don't know, I think it was Kogan that made that analogy, and I'm like,
okay,
wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, that's actually perfect. That fits very well.
Like, what are your thoughts on them being so cute? Like, I love it. I have no complaints.
It's funny. So when I saw this, like when you linked the story initially, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is already so much better than the gray one that I have. I was going to grab it, but I
have the black one, and it's not really exciting either, to be frank.
Maybe it's black. Whatever the darkest model they have is.
Yeah, the black one.
I don't like it. Like, you
Neither
can't see the transparent stuff. It's just, there's no contrast. Whereas this is the total opposite. It's extra contrasty, and I love it.
When I was at MWC and I was at their like a launch party thing, they had the white one and the black one. I immediately said, like, I want the white one. It's the more obviously cool looking one. And then I got the black one, and it's kind of a bummer. And then you see this one, you're like, this is how it should have been from day one. But I kind of dig it because I think now they can do special editions, right? I can see them doing, like, you know how they did the yellow earbuds? Like a yellow themed one would be super cool too, right?
Yeah, it would. And I think, do they make things in like small batches similarly to how OnePlus initially did?
Look, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Carl has all of the connections, right, that he made at OnePlus, like in Shenzhen in China for manufacturing, for limited quantity manufacturing. Yeah. Like, clearly, I think he has that logistical, operational, like, know-how that I think Apple is also super famous for. But I think OnePlus has been very good with that too over the years, and generally speaking, BBK Group, right? So I think I wouldn't be surprised if what we're seeing here is the results of, years and years of relationships where they can kind of say, we'll make, 10,000 of those, right?
Right. Yeah,
but I dig it.
I enjoy it. It's definitely, cool. It's nice to see these kinds of special editions. And I feel like for a little while there, especially like in the early 2020s type of time frame, phones got really boring with colors. We had like the Z Fold 2 had that really cool copper color. And you had a few that had nice stuff. And then after that, I feel like it just fell off and everything got really boring. And now it's like phone manufacturers are remembering, oh yeah, people like fun looking phones. We should maybe try that again.
Remember the Note 20 Ultra? That was such a hot looking phone.
Was it the same copper or was it a different
I'm pretty
color?
sure it was a slightly different hue, but it was stunning at the time. I was like, whoa, this is what we want.
Right. And I even liked the Note 10 had that pearl kind of color. Like, that was nice looking too. So,
and that one that looked like a CD, remember that back? That like super
that's the one. That's the one that's in my head.
Of?
I had a friend who had that one, and I remember holding it like, dang, this thing is, wow. It's certainly eye-catching.
But what I like about this is, they've done like the camera surround, the little bump. That looks like a water drop on the back of the phone is blue. Cameras are black. There's that red accent around, I think, one of the microphones or whatever that is in the back, right? Or it's an LED or something. And then, the little red tab on our black phones is yellow here. And then I've got a few little yellow accents, another blue accent. And then the NFC coil around the camera pod is gray, and the ribbon cable that snakes in the back of the phone is gray. Dude, that thing looks super hot. I pinged Jane right away, and I said, Jane, I need one of those. You need to send me one. This is dope. Like,
and I like how the camera bump looks, because I know when they first unveiled the 2A's design, I wasn't a huge fan of that eyes look. It just kind of looks weird, especially on the black one, where it looks
yeah.
like an odd leftover piece. Whereas this looks, I mean, it's obviously a separate color from the rest, but I feel like it fits the design better, and maybe because it looks like R2D2, like it feels a little more intentional in the design.
I agree 100%. Like, I just think the black one is kind of like the miss of the colors available. But here's
Yeah.
what they need to do. You know, in my review, I wrote that it looks like a minion. They need to make a yellow one, like to match those ear A's. Like that needs to happen. Like minion, like it has to be a minion themed one.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty sweet.
Nothing, if you're listening, please give us a yellow phone 2A, you know, just for us.
Yeah. I mean, if you're making
10,
special editions, right? Might as well.
Yeah, of course. You might as well. I'm sure people would buy it. Like, I bet you some Nothing fans are buying every color available. Like, you know it, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, that segues well into an article you wrote. And I mean, it's not like super exciting, to do a best of article, but it's a necessary thing. And it does help a lot of people, especially those of you who might not be as familiar with the intrinsic little details of the phone universe. And I did really enjoy your picks on your best cheap phones. I went for affordable in my subject line because I feel like some of these phones are not cheap in the sense that they don't feel cheap, right? So yeah, what's do you want to run us through that real quick and give us the lowdown on your thoughts? I mean, the 2A from Nothing is in there. So, yeah, walk us through real quick.
I will say I'm not a fan of the word cheap either, but I believe this was done for search purposes because more people look for cheap phones rather than affordable phones. I don't know why, but it's probably the easier term. But so this one I actually had a hard time with because I think between the Pixel 7a, the 8a, and the OnePlus 12R, it's really hard to pick.
Yeah.
The 7a I ended up making number one because you can get one for so darn cheap. Like, if you're going to buy a Pixel A series right now, the 7A probably makes more sense because it's like $300, right?
Yeah.
Or $350 or something,
deal.
whatever deal you get on it, it is really, really cheap. So that won't stay at number one for, 6 months from now, probably. But for right now, yeah, I really don't think you can go wrong with that.
No.
Beyond that, the 12R is my really close second pick. And like, if they were the same price, like the 8A and the 12R are.
Oh, the 12R is a no-brainer. Yeah.
It's such a good phone. Like, it was one, when I first started using the 8A, I was like, okay, I'm going to use this for a week and a half, write the initial review, and then I'm going to use the 12R for a little while and see how they compare. And I really didn't want to leave the 12R. Like,
12R was spectacular. Like I got them at the same time, the 12 and the 12R, and I reviewed the 12, and I didn't review the 12R. I didn't have time, but I actually didn't even play with it until like March or something. But when I did, I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, this is so good. Like, it's still not what I would get. Like, I would spend the extra money and get the 12, but I'm like, if you're budget constrained, that phone just kicks serious butt. Like,
it does.
Wow. It's all about performance, smoothness. The display is outstanding. Cameras are fine. I mean, main camera is okay. The rest is meh. But like overall, like other than lack of wireless charging, you really can't go wrong with that thing, honestly.
Yeah, and I know, like, I remember when the 10T came out, right? And that was kind of it was really good in some areas and really weird in other areas. And this almost feels like a redo of that. Where it's like, okay, we're going to launch another, a little more budget friendly phone, and we're going to fix the things that people didn't like about the 10T and keep all the good stuff. And that's basically what the 12R is, right? Like,
well, so the R series was an India only series for a long time. And it was slightly cheaper, but possibly slightly more spec'd than the T series were all this time. So I think that the fact that they finally gave up on the T's and gave us the R's is the way to go, right?
Right.
One thing that caught my eye in your comparison was that you removed some points from the 8A for its display low brightness refresh, PWM. Does that not also affect the 7A, or is the 7A actually better at that?
The 7A is better. The 7A actually uses 360 hertz, whereas
Oh,
the 8A is 240, like pretty much all the other Pixel phones. The 7A is the weird one, right? Like,
yeah.
I know there are some people that are able to use the 7A because it's slightly higher,
Yeah.
but it's still not as friendly as like what OnePlus or nothing does in that regard.
No, I mean, the OnePlus is what, like 2160 or something?
Yeah.
PWM is super high refresh.
Yeah, there are so many numbers. I forget what the actual. Let me see if I have it in here.
We want facts, folks. We're going to
Yeah, I
dig
know
them
that's
out
right.
for
Yeah,
you.
it's 2160.
That's what I thought. Same as
And
the,
then yeah, and
go
then
on.
Nothing Phone 2A. All the Nothing phones actually are 1920 hertz.
Nice. So, I know, Nick, you're very sensitive to it, but if you are listening and you're also sensitive to flicker at low brightness, it's a no-brainer to get the 12-hour, the 2A here. Tell me
Yeah.
about the other options and choices you have in there.
All right. So we've got a couple of other picks. Like if your budget is a little bit less, right? We have like under 400, under 300. Samsung is pretty darn good for under 300. Like you're gonna
Right.
get the A. You got like the A25 and the A35. In fact, the A25 is best under 300. I considered swapping out the A54 with the A35 for like the
Yeah.
under 400 category, but
Yeah.
I don't. Samsung has been a little weird about that this year because they're not bringing the A55 to the US.
Yeah, it's
But
weird,
the
right?
A55 is also very similar to the A54, so I don't
Yeah,
know. It's
I'm
an odd
not
one.
like, I just haven't had a chance to play with the cheap Samsung phones, even the A series. So I'm not super versed on these, but it makes sense. I mean, you know what's really weird this year? We haven't had a OnePlus Nord N series yet.
We have not, and I know I expected the
Me too,
N400.
because they've been kicking butt with those phones in the past.
Yes.
So that would have been a good candidate for this write-up.
Yeah, definitely. I
Strange.
actually had the N30 on here previously.
Okay.
I forget which one I swapped it out for, but it was in the previous update that it was on here for, I think, close to a year, actually.
It's getting a little long in the tooth. The N20 was my favorite because it had an OLED screen. I know for you it probably wasn't as good because they probably didn't have PWM. But I like that we got a 60 hertz OLED for 1 year there with the N20.
Right. Yeah, I actually didn't test for that at that point, so I have
Okay.
no idea.
You don't know.
No.
But it's interesting, this is obviously a very US centric list if you're listening from India or Canada or
Right.
other markets. But there's a ton of great phones from the Chinese that are in the $300 range that are
Yeah.
completely obliterating these phones. Maybe not the closest we get here is probably the OnePlus, but especially if you can still get $100 off on the OnePlus, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You're talking the 12R?
Yeah, the 12R. You can send in like a completely charred up dumb phone from 2000 and they'll give you money.
Yeah, so you get it
back.
for $400 instead of $5 or
And that's
$6.
a really insane deal, if you
Yeah, it
ask
is.
me. So I think, if you're in Asia or if you're in Europe right now, you have like the Poco that I just went to Dubai for last week, the Poco F5 and F5 Pro. You also have the Poco X series. You have a bunch of Redmi phones. You have the Realme phones, which are really great, the Realme 12 series. There's a lot of good options out there. And then, of course,
bunch of stuff from
Oppo and
Honor,
Vivo. Oppo and Vivo have a bunch as well. So, it'd be really actually interesting to do an article comparing like what you can get in the US for 300 versus what you can get in the rest of the world for 300.
Yeah.
And shame the carriers.
No. I wish we could. Oh my gosh. That'd be great.
Yeah. So sad. But yeah, this is a good roundup. I was really, I kind of agree with your choices. I just was curious about the 7A versus 8A because of this PWM stuff. And
right.
Personally, I'm feeling iffy about the 8A. Like, I feel like this bezel-tastic madness is a step backwards. I don't understand why they did that. Like, It just
You're
doesn't
talking
look
the
good.
bottom bezel being a little
All of it.
thicker
The
than the
fact that
rest.
most of the bezel is really thick, and then you get the chin on top of that. Like the
Yeah.
7A has a chin, but overall it doesn't seem as noticeable somehow. I don't know.
Maybe it's the rounded corners that
It's the
do it.
rounded corners that do it. Yeah. Why is it
That's
so
probably
round?
it.
Why are they making everything look like an iPhone? I like the
See,
square look of the
I
Pixels.
prefer the round. I hate square phones. Like the S24 Ultra, S23 Ultra kind of form factor. It's like my least favorite
So the
style.
Red Magic 9 Pro is definitely out for you then.
Yeah, I used that as a gaming phone for a while because I
It's
put it in
really
a
good.
controller, like I don't hold the thing typically. So the square doesn't bother me. But yeah, normally like I don't like how square phones dig into my palm when I'm holding it with one hand. And I'd get over it real quickly.
Since the Patreons are watching on video, here's my Red Magic 9 Pro.
That's
In
a
a
nice
case,
one.
there's a slight if you see there's a slight plastic case on it there.
Hmm.
You can barely tell. But yeah, this thing is pretty dope for the money. You know what really surprised me the most? My review's coming out soon on Hot Hardware, guys. But what surprised me the most about this phone is like everything else is pretty much what I expect. Like, the gaming performance, the battery life, the all that. The stuff that Red Magic always nails, the stuff they also fail at, like software, it's always a disaster. But the cameras this year are really good, like especially the main. It's a larger sensor, so you get more natural depth of field if you shoot up like close-up shots or a person's portrait. And I don't know if it's the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 ISP or the bigger sensor, or they've done something because it still doesn't have OIS, but man, it takes such better pictures than any Red Magic phone before it. I was just like, wow, you could actually use this. If you are a gaming centric person and you want a flagship, one phone does all. I cannot say that you should buy a second phone because you need a better camera. It surprised me.
Yeah,
So,
I had not used previous Red Magic phones. This was my first, but
oh
I would
boy.
say in general, it has been a very good experience.
Yeah, I think the only problem, as I said, is the software. There's mistranslations. There is like you're never going to see a single update. Like forget it. Not even like a
Probably.
security update. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
so
still
that's
have issues with notifications on
Oh, well, of
their OS
course,
too.
because you need to like prioritize the apps to stay in the background and stuff.
Yep.
That's such a
Yeah, it's
China
real
thing.
annoying.
Such a Chinese ZTE,
Yep.
Nubia, Red
Honor does the
Magic.
same thing with a lot of stuff.
Oh my God, yeah. All of them. Like, Fine X7 Ultra, right? Oppo. I've got
Yep.
the flagship. And great phone, but you put it side by side with the OnePlus 12 and notifications aren't coming in.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
it's the
that was
same
actually why
software. What
yeah,
the
and that was
hell?
actually why I didn't use the original Find. Oh, was it the Find N, the big foldable? The
Yeah,
first
yeah,
one that
yeah.
had like no crease and was like, oh my gosh, the hardware was so good. And then I go
Yeah.
to use it and I'm like, I hate this software.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't want to use this.
It's getting better though. Like I have to say, the Chinese phones are
No
getting
doubt.
better.
Yeah, it's
But
way better than it used to be.
sometimes you still have to go in there and set like the background stay alive flag so that the apps don't disappear and the notifications
Right.
come
Yeah.
in. But to be fair, look, I don't want to be like let's be real for a second. My Pixel sometimes when it goes to sleep, like if I don't use it for a while, it's sitting on my desk doing nothing. I don't get anything, and then I pick up the phone and I get 5 notifications, and I'm like,
Yes.
what? Like, this is a Pixel. What is going on here? I should have gotten these notifications 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. I have run into that more than once, so I agree.
It seems to be a new bug for me. Like, it seems to have become a thing the last 3 months. This is my 8 Pro, of course. Maybe a factory reset will fix. There's no way I'm doing a factory reset. No, not happening.
No.
This is my main phone. Too lazy for that. Uh, this is the
It's
problem
already
with
a pain
Pixels.
enough. Yeah.
It's the problem with Pixels. I love my Pixel, but man, sometimes you're like, scratch your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that survey this week about the Pixel ownership and people
I,
considering another brand for next time?
I did not. Tell me about this.
I think it was yesterday, and I would have to find the survey, so maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it. But in any case, a pretty large percentage of Pixel owners surveyed said that they will look for another brand next time. And it was like, I
Ooh.
wonder if that's because of like the updates and some of the other issues that Pixel phones have had over the years, overheating, just whatever. You pick a topic and there's probably an article written about it.
Well, if you talk to Narav or Anubong, they will say, and I will quote Anubong here, Pixel is trash. And, you know, I will never do it as well as Anubong, obviously. But look, I disagree.
I do too.
I do agree that the tensor chips are crap, and still to this day, like my Pixel 8 Pro would be much better with a Snapdragon chip. I'm 100% sure of it, or even a MediaTek chip at this point. But it's the whole experience for me. The fact that the camera is so reliable, so consistent. The fact that I get all these awesome features like hold for me, call screening. I use call screening at least once a day. And, I just do better, Google, do better. Just do better. Like you're finally making flagship phones that are hardware-wise worth their salt, possibly other than Tensor.
And I would say software feature-wise too.
Oh, software feature-wise, 100%. But I'm feeling like, can we just like get that extra, apply yourself just a little more, just a little more. And I know that's not the Google way, because the Google way is to abandon everything halfway. But please, please.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks, right? And then maybe
that's why I'm a little like, I've got the Pixel 8a on my desk in San Francisco. I'm in Vancouver right now. And I'm just like, when I'm going to go back there this weekend, I'm just like, I want to love you, little Pixel, but I feel very tormented about you because of your massive bezels. And because I know that once I start using you, you will be amazing for a short time. And then you will piss me off with something like notifications not coming in, or the tensor chugging, or the fact that I will stare at those bezels and it'll make me cry every time. I know I'm being overly dramatic, but look, for the money, it's worth it. I bought a Pixel 7a for my mom. She's ecstatic about it. She loves that thing. So clearly, it was definitely better than her Honor, which was 8 years old. So
yeah, that would definitely be an upgrade.
Yeah. So move on to some other topics here. The thing that got me excited about, me and cameras, is there's some strong rumors that the Galaxy S25 Ultra might be switching to a full all 50 megapixel setup, just like the Oppo Find X7 Ultra, just like the absolutely outstanding and amazing Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which I have right here in its case. The case where you can remove the thing and put the little grip on, which I use sometimes. This phone, other than HyperOS, which drives me nuts because you have to swipe from the top right to get the quick setting and from top left for notification like an iPhone. Other than that, this thing is amazing. And I love the camera on this so much. So, 50 megapixel all sensors. I think it's time for Samsung. I believe this rumor to be true.
I would love it. And I know last year when, there were rumors about them ditching the 10X and all this stuff, it was very worrying. And I feel like unless you zoom 30X and beyond, the change was hugely important. Like it made a huge difference in image quality with pretty much everything from 1 to I think 20X was just a big improvement, right? And this will help a lot because that's probably one of the only weak points other than like motion capture. So, if they can work on the motion capture and also improve the resolution on these other cameras, that would be incredible. Like I feel like nobody else would be able to compete, especially with all of the software features they do too. Like they have a bazillion different camera modes you can download off of the Galaxy App Store. Their pro modes, like they do an excellent job with their camera software.
100%. And the other thing is, I took all these phones to Antarctica with me in February. My spouse and I did a once in a lifetime trip there. And I wrote a story on Forbes comparing my experience with the 4 phones. iPhone 15 Pro Max, Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro, and Oppo Find X7 Ultra, because the Xiaomi didn't exist yet. Otherwise, I would have taken Xiaomi. But what I found was that in terms of versatility, the most versatile was the Oppo, because even the ultra wide was good. Like everything, because everything is 50 megapixel, you get immediately so much more, room to crop and play with the images. Now, where the Samsung really excelled was zooming beyond 13x. I don't know why it's 13, but on the Oppo, it can do up 30x or 20x fine, but the results aren't as good as Samsung at 20 and 30 for some reason. And that was early software too, because I've gotten a bunch of software updates on my Fine X7 Ultra since then. But that's what was interesting. And of course, the iPhone was great at video still, especially being able to capture spatial video for people who have a Vision Pro. I don't, but I know I shared my videos with everyone in our little group of media, and some people were able to see what I saw in Antarctica in 3D. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was the Pixel. How does that fit in there? The Pixel was really great for portraits and pictures of people because of that skin tone, And so when I was on the ship, I took a lot of my photos of the Pixel. I took most of my videos of the iPhone. I gave the iPhone to strangers to take photos of us because everybody knows how to use an iPhone, right? Which is kind of like something to think about, if you're going to lend your phone to someone, what phone do you lend them? And then, as I said, the Samsung really felt like the winner for zooming far. And then the Oppo was a sublime from ultra wide to about 10, 12, 13x. It doesn't matter what you did. And of course, it had more of that camera vibe to it, like in terms of the image processing, the Hasselblad, like more contrasty, more highlights and shadows. Than you probably want, because you probably want to balance that out a little more with HDR like you would on a Pixel. The Pixel is really so good at HDR, I think. But overall, very interesting. And I think if Samsung can fix that, can give us an ultra wide that's 50 megapixel and a 3x that's 50, I think it'll be par for the course. It'll compete with the best of the best today, and they're so close, right? I just wish the color science was better. I think Samsung. I don't like what comes out of Samsung phones. It never feels quite right to me. It's not terrible. It's fine. Right. It's usable, but it's just like if you put side by side with a Pixel or an Oppo or a Xiaomi, like same with the iPhone. Like I love the consistency, but I see an iPhone picture and I'm like, it's fine.
And I know they did improve that with the S24 because I remember doing comparisons. Yeah. And especially if I'm taking pictures of flowers or something that's really vibrant, the S24 just looks so much more natural. You don't have this like over vibrance where it ends up crushing the gradient hues in a flower, where like, a red flower on an S23 is just red. Whereas on an S24, you at least had this like slight gradient of, it's a little bit darker red on the inside, or you just something like that. Like you could see those more natural color shifts on the newer processing. But they still have a bit of work to do.
Yeah, so let's see how that pans out. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the Ultra is their best phone, short of going folding phone, and it's gonna have to keep up with the Jonesies right now. And 50 megapixel across is the way to go, and we're not going back from that at this point. I think if anything, we're going to 1-inch sensors and larger sensors across the board. We're seeing that with the Vivo X100 Ultra, which now has a 200 megapixel telephoto, so it can do a lot of reach optically, but then it can also do a lot of reach by pixel binning and pixel cropping. It's 3-4 years from now, they'll all have 200 megapixel.
And I would love to see
everywhere.
And I would love to see a sensor like that's in the Magic 6 Pro just behind a better lens, because I know my biggest issue with that phone's camera was that it's only a 2.5x lens, right? Like when you zoom in more than maybe 6 or 7, it really drops off.
Yeah. Another rumor this week that pertains to flagships is that the entire BBK group, other than Vivo, looks like it's getting 6,000 milliamp hour batteries on their flagships. That means the OnePlus 13, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, if that's what it's called, and the Realme GT6 Pro. Speaking of which, I just received the Realme GT6 Non-Pro, which is I think still embargoed, but it's a pretty impressive phone. I think it's not coming to the West just yet, but I had last year's GT5 Pro from Realme, and that phone was essentially a clone of the OnePlus 12, but it came out before the OnePlus 12, and it was, in fact, the first Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 phone in my staple. And
Mm-hmm.
it's Chinese market only, but that phone was super great. So 6,000, that's like red magic, like 6,000. Holy crap on
It's
a
a crazy number.
non-gaming? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean this lines up with rumors from, I don't know, a month or two ago when the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 was, first getting talked about, and they were saying it's going to have larger batteries because it's more power hungry. And then, in this one article, they mentioned that in the second half. So
Yeah, they did. It's
it'll
interesting to me because you'd think that efficiency would, like, you'd still be the primary goal here. And then we wouldn't want to just throw bigger batteries at the problem. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
right. Yeah, I'm curious to see if that's the case, how the 8 Gen 4 is going to handle thermal loads, because
Oof.
being that much more power hungry makes me think it's going to be that much hotter. And I don't know.
That's
I'm not really
true.
sure what they're going to do about that, because if you got a 1,000 milliamp hour larger battery, okay, that's already, you got to make the phone a little bit bigger for that. And then if the thermals are higher, that means they're going to have to leave more room for bigger heat pipes and this and that and the other thing. So
Maybe
I
they're
wonder
going to
if
be
the next gen's going to
using,
be thicker, a lot thicker.
yeah, or they're going to be using the technology that Honor's using, those nano
Yeah.
carbon batteries or whatever they are
Yeah.
that are thinner. Maybe they're ready for that now. But yeah, you're right. I'm a little concerned because I mean, like, I know how Red Magic's going to solve that. They're just going to put another fan in there. But
Right. Yeah. They got the easy way out,
but
right?
that's the easy way out, right?
Basically.
Like, I don't know. It's getting kind of crazy to me. Like, I'm not sure we need that kind of. I'd rather us focus on efficiency than focus
Yeah.
on more power that heats up more and that uses more battery. So I'm not sure what Qualcomm is up to there. But I suppose they have those new CPU cores, right? So
Yes. It's the
that's
Orion
the
cores.
Orion. So that's what's gonna it's like an intermediate step until they can optimize the thermals on Orion. I feel like that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be like the Snapdragon 808 and 810 all over again.
I hope not. Or even the 8 Gen 1, which wasn't quite as bad, but it was not good.
Well, let's stay tuned and see what happens.
Sure.
Just prepare yourself for some thick phones.
Most
Okay, let's
likely.
see. We have some wearable stuff to talk about. So a couple of things happened this week. The Galaxy Watch 7 Ultra, technically 7, but it turns out that the 7 is not going to be in the name. It's just going to be Galaxy Watch Ultra. Leaked. The renders for it leaked. And I dig this design. It's kind of like squared off a bit. What do you think?
I hate square watches.
No, but this is not square. It's got a round
It's
display.
it's interesting. I will give it that. It does still have a round display. I don't really know why though we would need the squarish body. Like what is
More
the
real estate.
idea there? But it's not more real estate for the screen. Like
No, but it's
what
the
does this do
battery,
for
right?
them?
Battery.
I guess.
And also
And
it's
maybe
a it's
something
a
else in there.
it's also a design language. It's like this will clearly identify it as, the Ultra from Apple is a very popular watch and very easy to identify because of its
Yeah.
design. It stands out even amongst the sea of Apple watches. And so I think this is actually a good effort on Samsung's part. I don't hate it. Will I buy one? No, unless they give me a review in it and I'll try it out. But like, yeah, I think it's okay.
I think, yeah, if we're going on that angle, yes, they've done a great job of making a design that is immediately identifiable, because that's certainly a big problem with just a lot of smartwatches,
I
right? A
think a
lot
lot of the
of,
round watches, like, the Xiaomi watch S3 I'm wearing right now, it's like, you don't, how do you tell it apart from a OnePlus watch? From a, like,
right.
it's just like they're all, and the OnePlus watch actually has that interesting little, you know, weird thing with the fake crown and the whatever. Fake crown that does nothing. I'm still butthurt by that.
Right. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to show what this phone is in the back, but if you look at this phone from the front, what do you think it is?
It's got two cameras in the top, so it must be an Honor or something.
Okay, but I mean, aside from that, like, it's got the
Yeah,
I
the
can't even
tapered
think
edges, the
the tapered edges,
waterfall, the
yeah, the
curved.
rounded
Yeah,
the curved display on the side. Sorry, whatever. like a lot of Android phones have a similar aesthetic where they have the curved sides, they have the edges that, kind of pinch in. Some of them are almost too sharp for their own good. Like,
Yes.
there's a lot of phones. Like I will have sometimes several of these on my desk and I will pick up the wrong one 3
Yeah.
times before I find my phone because they all look the same, right?
And that's kind of my
And it's,
point. Like, I think in that
yes, I
sense,
know.
Samsung's making something that'll stand out. And I think that's probably what they want, right? But they don't want to
Yeah,
go square because we all agree square watches are wrong.
right.
I'm
So
so opinionated.
in that regard, oh no, I'm with you. Trust me, I hate square watches. I can't stand them. I will say 2 things that I'm hoping for this. Number 1, I hope it's more comfortable. I find Galaxy watches supremely uncomfortable on my wrist. I
They're
don't know
big
why.
and heavy.
There's just something about the shape that hurts my wrist.
Huh.
Like if I wear them for more than 3 or 4 hours at a time, I'm like, this has to be removed. I cannot wear this anymore. It bothers me. And like a Pixel
Wow.
Watch doesn't have that problem. I think because it's such a bowl shape on the bottom that the actual part of your wrist that it touches is very, very small. Whereas the Galaxy watches are a lot flatter. So you have more of that surface area just like resting on your skin. So just my guess after using them for many years and having the same problem over and over again, right?
Makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
and then the buttons on the side are super interesting because one of them looks like a crown, but I don't think it is because the article says the bezel on the top is still a rotating bezel. I
I
think
think it's
maybe
just
it's
a
just 3
button.
buttons,
Yeah.
but
But three
I
buttons.
like that it's the 3 buttons are almost flush with the side because I
Yep.
know, and I'm not wearing my Pixel watch right now, but on a watch like that where it has a crown that juts out from the side, I will typically hit the button whenever my wrist goes like
Oh,
this, right?
100%. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're leaning on a wall or if you're like working out and doing push-ups or something, if I don't have the crown going the other way, I always hit that thing with the back of my hand.
Yeah.
So it's nice
No,
to see that flatter form factor on a
I
watch that
agree.
will probably be fitness focused.
Yeah, and maybe that third button is like an action button on the Apple Watch, right? Like maybe
Sure.
they, there's such a Samsung thing to copy Apple, so
Yeah,
no
why
offense
not?
to Samsung.
And it has 3 buttons, which is cool because most only have 2.
I mean, one more button, that's why you buy the
I'm
watch,
okay
right?
with extra buttons, like especially when they're like that, where they're in a good spot and they don't seem to be like they would obstruct anything. No,
There
my
you go,
problem is today. I'm
folks.
sorry.
You heard it from Nick. This is the way. That's it. I agree with you. I agree with you. Speaking of wearables, we also have a Fitbit Ace LTE. And at first, okay, I want to be honest here. I'm super biased against Fitbit. Like, I don't like their products. And that's why I have a lot of emotions when it comes to the Pixel Watch. Like, I want Fitbit, like, just get absorbed fully into Google already so that you give us a Google Fit that's a Fitbit software stack that's better. Because I think their software is great. But I've never really liked Fitbit's hardware. And so I dismissed this at first, but then I started reading reviews of this thing as I was researching the news for the week. And I'm like, wow, it's universally loved. And it's a kid smart. I didn't think it was a kid smartwatch. It's a kid smartwatch.
Right.
And it's got like Tamagotchis and whatever in it. And I'm like, we need to talk about this because I know you're a watch guy at heart. A little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I review kids' watches. My son has several
Do
now.
you?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. So
So
and
what's your take
ironically,
on
I
this
did not get
thing?
one of these for launch, but neither
What's your
here
take
nor there.
on? Yeah, what's your take on reading those reviews?
I like it a lot. It basically seems like a kid's Pixel Watch, right?
Yeah.
Like Fitbit focused kids Pixel Watch, which okay, so up until now, I would say like you either buy the Garmin Bounce or T-Mobile's Sync Up watch. And
Right.
most of the other kids smartwatches are either they don't have enough features, they're too confusing, they're too bulky. Like there's always some big problem with a lot of the kids smartwatches.
Okay.
And this solves so many issues. And I know, like, whenever we get a new one and I give it to my son, the first thing he does is, all right, let me see what games it has on there. Because that's what he cares about on his watch. He wants it to
That's
have
very
some kind of
cool.
fun game. And I can't
Right.
tell you how many kids' watches don't have games. And I think
What a miss.
that's what I think too. And I think the concept is you want this thing for communication and some basic tasks just to keep them connected to you if there's an emergency or something like that. Maybe some light fitness features, right? But a lot of them just really, really miss the mark. if you compare them to like a full featured smartwatch, like an Apple Watch or a Pixel Watch or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And this seems like they finally figured it out. Like somebody finally was like, okay, we need to make an actual watch for these kids that is a kid's watch, but doesn't skimp on all of these important features.
Right.
And it has virtual pets that you feed by doing physical activities.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
cute.
Oh my gosh, this is perfection.
Yeah. And your reaction is the reaction I've read from others who are, knowledgeable about kids' smartwatches and have reviewed this watch. And that's why I was like, okay, let's put my biases aside about Fitbit. This seems to be a really cool product and I'm obviously not the target audience, but kids need to be happy if they're going to wear a smartwatch. So, this seems to really do a good job. So kudos to Fitbit or Google, really.
Right. And I think the only downside to it is that it seems like you have to have the subscription to basically use it.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around that. And I know some other watches will get away with that because like the T-Mobile one is free. You get it from T-Mobile. You don't pay anything up front. All you pay for is the $10 a month or $5 a month or what, I can't remember the cost.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a cool business model.
Then you're effectively paying for it over time versus upfront and over time. So I feel like is the only
steep for a
sort
kids
of miss.
Watch, right?
Right.
That's
$10 a month.
$229. It's a lot.
It's a lot, but I think that includes Fitbit, cloud stuff. So that alone is already $10 a month. And I don't know why anybody would pay for regular Fitbit for $10 a month as it is. But if it includes service, that makes it
that's
actually pretty valuable. Like
I agree.
That's better.
Yeah. So I think this is cool. I don't know if I'm wondering why they keep the Fitbit brand going and why they still have a separate app. Like, come on, can we just get over this now?
Yeah, this is definitely, as far as the names go, this is a weird one. You would think this would be Pixel Watch Kids or something. Like, I don't know. I don't expect this to have
even
the Fitbit
Pixel
branding
Watch
with them
Ace.
ditching Fitbit.
Pixel Watch Ace. I like the Ace name. Ace is cool.
Right, Ace is fine, whatever. I'm just saying, like, I expected it to have Pixel Watch in the name versus another Fitbit watch since, aren't they getting rid of Fitbit? Are they? I don't really know what they're doing. Maybe they don't.
Google.
Either.
Google doesn't know what they're doing. Never mind us knowing what they're doing. Yeah, I think this is cool. And I'm glad
we're just here to guess.
Yeah, really, that's our jobs. Welcome to us reviewing devices on a podcast. We're just guessing.
It's legit enough.
A few items to wrap things up here that I want to get your thoughts on some of these things. Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, we all know, is June 10th, but the invites are going out. And do we have any clues in there as to what's going on?
Are you talking in the invite itself?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to decipher right now.
I don't know. So it's a circle, which makes me just think of Apple Park. But at the same time, I also want to read into the logo because it's always fun to read into the logo.
Exactly, right?
So like the next thing I think of is a wireless charging puck of some kind, which wouldn't really make any sense, but that's where my mind goes next.
Maybe it's Qi 2.
Maybe, but they already launched that, so I don't think so.
No, but maybe they're like formalizing it as MagSafe Plus.
Okay, that could be.
You know
what
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
right. I also
and then maybe there's a whole data interface now too. So like, there's going to be a whole bunch of new MFI. You remember how what was that phone from Andy Rubin's startup? What was it called?
Essential.
Thank you. The Essential phone. Remember how it had the wireless data connection in the back?
Yes,
it had the pins for power, but it had a
like
magnetic
360 camera on top.
Yeah, it had a USB coil-based, data-based thing. So I'm wondering if Apple's like, okay, the reason we've, like Qi 2 is kind of like still in its infancy, but like why don't we continue our MFI revenue stream by providing a data connectivity through wireless charging.
That would be
that
cool.
Way you can have all kinds of accessories that have all kinds of functionality.
And it would make, mounting in the car even easier because then you just snap it and you don't have to plug in. I mean, or even connect to Bluetooth, right? Like it's a hard connection all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So the other thing is the dub part, the WW it reads like Volkswagen right now. VW.
Yeah. I
So
saw
maybe they
that
have
too.
a partnership with Volkswagen on Apple CarPlay, the one that takes over the dashboard. No, I'm just kidding. That's very unlikely.
I mean, that's not unreasonable. I also thought maybe like being a circle, maybe they're redoing the way Siri looks since they are
Oh yeah.
supposedly baking in a whole bunch of AI stuff. So that
Well,
could be like the
definitely.
new, the circle like pulses or something when you're talking to it. Kind of like how the Siri orb does something similar right now. Like maybe it's just a visual redesign of that.
I also think that there's a lot of hope amongst us tech journalists, probably false hope that we're going to see, a better version of iPad OS that finally puts that amazing M4 hardware to, through its paces fully. I don't
Right.
believe it. I think that that's what we want, and I agree that it should be happening. But is that what Apple wants? I'm not convinced.
Probably not.
What I think will be interesting is to see if they launch any Macs with M4 chips, like a Mac Mini, which is due for refresh,
Mhm.
or MacBook Pros. Maybe there's going to be an M4 Pro and M4 Max chip. That would be very interesting. Mac Studios, I think, are also overdue for an M chip. I think right now we're probably safe on the MacBook Air and the iMac because it had M3 already. But personally, I would feel more comfortable because I'm not a tablet user. I would feel more comfortable if Apple announced some sort of M4 based Mac at this conference, because then I'd feel like, okay,
Right.
we've got something on the Mac side with M4. That's just me. So yeah, we'll find out, folks. I don't know. It's kind of cool though. Like, I'm not, Apple is. I'm a Mac user. I like my Macs. I have an iPhone because I have to use one and test things, and I like to do video with it. But I don't honestly could kind of care less what they're going to do. But I feel that Apple has a good way of kind of integrating technologies that we've been using on the Android or PC side for a while. And I have to give them credit for making these integrations very, very clever and very fun to
Mhm.
use. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I want them to impress us rather than regurgitate. Because if it's just more AI, even if it's better done than what everybody else has been doing so far, which I think with Apple is what we'll probably get, is a solid use of AI that's reliable.
Probably.
But even if it's just that, I'm just going to be like, okay, great. But I want more. I want something kind of out of left field, something fun like this wireless charging data connection thing. That would be cool.
That would be very cool.
The next thing that kind of blew my mind, that T-Mobile has acquired or is acquiring US Cellular. Wow. I did not see that
Yeah.
one coming.
I did not
4.4
either.
billion after buying Mint Mobile.
They just bought Mint, yeah.
I know.
They like literally just bought Mint.
Well, T-Mobile's becoming a big boy.
Yeah, for sure. And it's I don't even want to say it out loud because I'm afraid it's going to happen, but like as a T-Mobile customer of 20 years now,
Me too.
I haven't had a price increase in like 15.
Oh yeah,
so
the price thing, yeah.
I'm really like maybe don't mention my name, like I don't want anybody to find out. I'm pretty happy with that.
I haven't received anything yet, but I changed plans less than a year ago to one of the newer plans because I fly so much, I commute between two cities plus all my travel for car stuff, that having the free Wi-Fi more than 4 times a year on the planes is a thing. So I actually bit the bullet and upgraded myself and my spouse as a family to and it's not much more. I mean, we're also getting faster data speeds on roaming abroad, which we didn't have in our plan. So for me, it's been a plus, like a win. And since I'm on one of the newer plans, I don't think I'm going to see any increases.
Right.
But I feel for those, who are on like old Magenta or even older than that, those whatever they were called plans.
It's like the one thing in my life that hasn't increased in price. So I'm like trying to just hold on to it.
Well, I do feel like T-Mobile is handling this super well, but at the same time, look, I hate to say it, but inflation is a thing, and I know
Sure.
it's kind of artificial, right? Like the Fed set interest rates, and we got lots of inflation, and a lot of corporate entities are taking advantage of that because they're still, giving their executives way more money and their workers not enough money, and taking advantage of the customer by saying, oh, well, inflation, so we need to raise prices. And I know this is
Right.
all BS, but at the same time, I can see where they're coming from. It's just a suck for people who, for me, I can afford if it's $2 or $5 more a month. But I feel bad for people who are really tight and were like so happy to be on Timo because all this time they didn't have to worry about that. And now they
Yeah.
have to worry about it. And that's
Right.
just it's a bad move, Timo. And I don't know if buying US Cellular is a good move either, because like you're just becoming big and bloated and stupid.
I mean, how many of these smaller companies do we even have left in the US?
Cricket?
Yeah.
Uh
I know. I honestly can't even remember what
wow.
is still independent. Like,
Yeah, we
is
don't
a
have
Simple
much, do
Choice
we?
still around? Like, I think TrackPhone's still around. Like, there
Track
are
phone's
still
still
a
around.
couple, but the pool is getting smaller every year, and
Yep.
it is concerning because, for obvious reasons, once you get down to like 2 or 3 players, then, well, as we've seen from the processor market on the desktop side, right? Like when you
Yeah.
have 2 players, things typically kind of suck. Like
And I can tell
it's
you
just not good.
here up in Canada, we have basically three players, and it's it's a nightmare because two of them are essentially the same. And like Bell and Telus might as well be the same company. They're like more Bell on the East Coast and Telus on the West Coast, but they're essentially. And then you've got Rogers, which is like the AT&T of Canada. They kind of suck balls, but
Yeah.
they all do because they're all so expensive here. Like I'm on Telus because I'm West Coast and I want to be on the lesser evil carrier, and like I have to pay to just roam and use my phone in the US, and yeah, everything's like nickel, like penny pinching and nickel and diming. Like,
Right.
oh, you want tethering? Oh, well, pay more. Oh, you want unlimited like roaming? Oh, forget that. We don't even have that. Like you'll be paying like $10 a day minimum for whatever it is, and for
Yeah.
like 100K of data or something. No, it's
Yeah.
just they're so behind, and it's sad because you're like, thankfully I live in both countries. I keep my T-Mobile account; it's my main number. But I'm like, if I was fully in Canada, I'd be like, I'd be screwed. I wouldn't have any options. And so I
Right.
hope it doesn't get to that.
I do too.
Timo, I want John Ledger to come back just to entertain us.
If he was nothing, he was certainly entertaining.
That's the point. The way he, talked crap of the others, it was just so entertaining.
Yeah.
The last thing we have is kind of like a farewell to
It's
ICQ. I don't know if you ever
it's
used
fun.
that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I did. I don't remember what my number is off the top of my head anymore, though. But
It's been a
apparently,
long time since I've used it. I don't
I
even know.
know. So ICQ somehow still exists. I'm surprised by that. But it'll stop
Yeah.
working on June 26th. Um, and now it's owned by a Russian company, and they're shuttering it down. So, wow, end of an era, right?
Apparently, an era I thought
Like,
ended a long time ago.
well, me too. But like, I just want to. The reason I brought this up is not because I will miss it and I use it. It's just more like the context, right? We DM people now. DM is something that direct message is something Twitter really pioneered. The wording, not
Right.
the technology, right? But I think that DMs are essentially what IMs used to be, right? Like an instant message, like Yahoo Messenger and AOL Messenger and all that. That was super hot for a while. Like I think we have to acknowledge the fact that that was hotter than text messaging at one point, right?
Oh
Remember
yeah,
that?
for sure.
Because in like the thing that there's a really good article I read recently about why iMessage has become as big as it has in the US and North America is because we never had what Europe and the rest of the world had, which where we had to pay for messaging. So we got unlimited messaging very early on. It's like we went from nobody texting, nobody even know what texts were, whereas the rest
Mhm.
of the world was texting already, to everybody's texting because it's unlimited and free. Because in the rest of the world, receiving text was free because it's not your fault if you're receiving a text, right?
Sure.
Randomly from some, doctor's
Yeah,
appointment
you can't
reminder
control
for the
that.
wrong person. But sending text was costly. And so that's why WhatsApp got invented. These apps that were dedicated to replacing text messaging and data once 3G became ubiquitous, were big. And we never saw any of that because we could text all we want for free. And then, eventually Apple decided to piggyback on that with iMessage. And here we are now with this total mess of messaging in this country. I was in Sweden before I was in Dubai, and even both in Sweden and Dubai in the last 2 weeks, everybody I interacted with as part of like the PR teams and the logistics people, handlers, it was all WhatsApp. Everything was WhatsApp.
Everything's WhatsApp.
And these were, Swedish people in Sweden, but they were Chinese people in Dubai. And we didn't even use WeChat, which I have. Like, it was just WhatsApp.
Right. Yeah, WhatsApp is the universal standard. You don't worry about what country you're in typically. You just ask for the WhatsApp and it works.
Exactly.
That's just it.
And so, hear me out, folks. A lot of you here I know are not in the US and Canada. And, I know you're smart about this stuff. But if you don't have a WhatsApp account right now, do yourself a favor. Just go get one, okay? Because all you need is a phone number. And that's it. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost anything at all. It's data driven. Doesn't use your text messaging at all. Like, it's an independent thing, and it's the way to go. And you can make calls, video calls, exchange all the stuff you do with iMessage, like all high quality video and photos, read receipts, see that people are typing. None of this was invented by Apple. This was already all in IM back in the day. Actually, the red notifications and the typing, that was instant message. That was ICQ and these guys. That's kind of why I think it's important for us to talk about this, because it's like, even though nobody cares about ICQ and it's kind of like, okay, it's ending, it defined a lot of what we take for granted today. And it isn't just ICQ. This is Yahoo and MSN and AOL Messenger, all of these together, right? So I think it's kind of worth having a moment and saying, we've kind of come full circle. One of the OGs is gone. It's interesting with the Russians, because LiveJournal, do you remember LiveJournal? I don't know if you've ever used LiveJournal, but it's like they were also acquired by the Russians. My account still is there and exists. And I logged in the other day and everything's still there. But now it's owned by Russians. So, you probably want to tread lightly.
I used LiveJournal a little bit. What was the one after LiveJournal? Between that and Facebook. I can't remember the name of that one.
Oh, the one with music stuff,
with
right?
Tom or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
God, I was MySpace.
MySpace, that's the one I'm thinking of.
That was the one I used more. I think I had a lot of friends who used LiveJournal, but I didn't really I've never been a journaling person.
Right.
So, that's really what it was for, was like public journaling. And I never got into that. So MySpace made more sense. I don't even know what I used MySpace for, but that was the one I recall using. Because I remember everyone was Tom's friend and he had like the little looking behind him avatar.
Yeah, I had one for a while too. But you know what? It's interesting. Before Facebook became popular and after MySpace started dwindling a little bit, there was this really brief moment in time. If you were, and this was very geographic, very much Bay Area centric. There was a startup in the Bay Area called Tribe.net. Tribe, like a tribe. Tribe.net was a social network that basically Facebook stole almost every relevant feature from eventually. But it was so polished. Everything that you're used to on Facebook today, minus all the BS of not showing you what you really want to see. Like, imagine a time when you could get only the things you wanted in chronological order in your feed, just the way you wanted, right? But the stuff like Marketplace, messaging, group messages, the whole threaded response, all that stuff was in Tribe.net. And it was because Bay Area is very technologically savvy. It was super popular with the people from the people who go to Burning Man, the people who are in technology. It was a thing, and we thought for sure it was going to stay forever. And I don't remember what happened. I think the owner, there's a privately owned thing. They couldn't afford the server costs anymore, and they shut it down. Like, they just killed it. And somebody, I think, got the archive, and there's a backup of it somewhere out there, but it's not live because otherwise, server fees. But like, for those of you who lived in the Bay Area in, I would say 2005-ish, that timeline, pre-iPhone, you will remember Tribe.net. And it looked really good. Like interface was really nice. I miss it very much. I built a lot of community. A lot of my friends today in real life in the Bay Area are from people I met online through tribe.net.
Yeah, and it's funny on that note too. Like in that time period, I was more of a forum person. So
Yeah.
I had very specific forums that I visited.
Howard forums, remember that?
Yeah, well, and like the people that I met in those forums are people I still talk to today. Like my best friend I met in '99 on the 3D Mark forums. And I'm trying to think of like some of the other ones. I still have a couple friends that I talked to from that one. And like I have a couple from NeoGAF before it went real bad.
Oh my God, yes.
And that's like my core group of people is from those two forums. And I talk to them every day, no exception. You know, how many years later? Like that's like the core that has always stuck with me because we've never had, you know, when you have in-person friends, typically it's for geographic reasons, right? When you move away, you can talk to them maybe a year or two, maybe 3 years if the friendship was really strong, but it almost always falls off. Whereas these people, we've never had that as part of, you know, our relationship. It's always been based on really core interests. So I continue to talk to them because we have never lost that thing. We just maybe move like to Discord or to something else. Like the platform we talk on is what changes versus the, you know, the relationships.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, on this note, let's wrap up. Nick, tell folks where they can find you on the internet, where you write, what your social media handles are, any projects you're working on, you want people's attention on.
All right. I'm at Android Central, of course. I am on, should we still call it Twitter? I guess we call it Twitter.
I refuse to call it X.
Twitter, Threads. I'm Guanatu at every place you can put a username in. It's GWANATU.
There you go.
Yeah, that's.
Are you on Instagram? Since you're on Thread, you probably are, right?
Yep. Okay. Same username. I try to stick with that for everything, just for consistency.
Yeah, I try that too. You know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl, TNKGRL on all the socials. That's like the comic book character Tankgirl. Drop the vowels. And you'll find me on Twitter. You'll find me on Threads, on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Blue Sky even. So please, follow me there. Chat with me and Nick on the socials about this podcast if you have comments. And please subscribe to the podcast, mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on all the big platforms. So, please consider telling your friends and everything else, grow the audience. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. It would help. There's a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast, where I publish videos, not often enough, but I'm trying. So check it out, mobiletechpodcast.com. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment about the podcast if you want. And then there's a Patreon. I mentioned it a few times, patreon.com/Tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. You'll get a video version of the podcast for $5 a month. Every time I do a show, which is 4 times a month or so, and you get it a day in advance usually. So you get to watch us, hold phones, talk, see our faces. It's a bit more interactive, a bit more fun, a bit more personal. And for those of you who want to get the podcast in advance, it's a great way to get it, even if you're just listening to the audio. So publish on Sundays for the main audio. So typically you can get that on Saturday evening or something like that. So check it out, patreon.com/TNKGRL. I would appreciate your help if you can. There's other tiers there as well. And if you don't want to use Patreon, there is a way to donate by clicking on a PayPal link in the show notes. So please consider buying me a coffee or something. And finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. You know I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network?
In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile.
And Nick, thanks again for being my guest on the show. Really appreciate you coming on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Absolutely. We'll have Nick on again in the future, folks, and you know I'll have a podcast next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.